In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel. Its message was true and concerned a great war. The understanding of this message came to him in a vision. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned or interceded for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine, because he saw something, sensed something in this vision. It didn't touch my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were out. In other words, he was hungry and stunk. Okay? He was serious. I'm not taking time to brush my teeth. I'm not taking time to all these things. And on the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river Tigris, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen and a belt of the finest gold around his waist. Jumping to verse 7. I, Daniel, was the only one that saw this vision, and the men with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was telling the story earlier about the angels and the presence of God through his angelic presence that day in prayer meeting. If you were in that prayer meeting, I don't think you would have forgotten that prayer meeting. And that's why then Betty began to talk about angels. I hadn't talked, and she began to talk about things, and she began, and then that was the open door that I should tell people publicly what I saw. That's why I can tell you tonight publicly what I saw, and I'm shocked that it hasn't been fulfilled yet. So if I believe it's true, which I do, I believe there's something great coming. And you and I are really smart if we hope it's something really great and it's something really good. Amen. Even if it is the rapture, we'll take that, won't we? We got more work to do first. Okay. So I was left alone because everybody ran off because they felt something, but their spirit wasn't in harmony with that spirit. And I had no strength left. My face turned deadly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and I listened to him, and I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. In other words, his face was face down. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. In other words, this hand touches him, and he's on his face, and now he's getting up to his hands and knees. It's just said he's tired. All the strength is drained out of him. He's feeling this thing. He's seen a vision, but it's just affecting him physically, and that can happen in intercession. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees, and he said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words that I'm about to speak to you. So first of all, Daniel, you are highly esteemed. God is paying attention to you. I want you to know, every one of you that wants God to pay attention to him, he will pay attention to you if you follow him. Your words will be precious to him. That's why I read this morning. It says, precious is the death of the saint, of a servant of God. God doesn't take you for granted, especially if you're obeying him. He loves everybody, but you can have higher esteem in God. And a hand touched me, my hands and knees, and he said, Daniel, you are highly esteemed. Consider carefully. Now, if this wasn't for us today, this wouldn't be in the Bible. There's a lot of stuff the Bible didn't put in because it wasn't necessarily for us to need to know. There's certain things in the Bible are need to know. Say need to know. I need to know this because apparently Daniel needed to know this. So if Daniel needed to know this, and he was already a pretty good prayer, pretty good success rate, if Daniel needed to know it, then I need to know it. And he said, consider carefully the words I'm about to speak to you and stand up. Remember, he's really weak. For I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up trembling. In other words, I'm really weak. He's helping me get up on my hands and knees, and we would call it being slain in the spirit or whatever. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. So there's some level of fear. Since the first day that you set your mind, say first day. It doesn't say first day that you prayed, even though it probably was, it says the first day that you set your mind. Who set his mind? Daniel set his mind. You are setting your mind on things that you're setting your mind for. Okay? But it looked like nothing happened. Just like when you set your mind. Now, again, we're talking about the will of God here. And since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding, Lord, I want understanding. I've got this vision, and I'm interceding, and to humble yourself before your God. Your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. Now, when we grow up, as I said, soldiers, a soldier is not a baby. A soldier knows he's going to face an enemy. And you'll either have guts or no guts to fight the battle. Many Christians run. I don't believe you're of that group. But the prince of Persia, the kingdom, he resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief priests, came to help me. Chief princes, came to help me because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now, we're talking about spiritual things. We're not talking about the literal king of Persia. We're talking about the one that's affecting the king of Persia, just like there's a spirit trying to affect the leader of Canada. There's somebody trying to affect the leader of Ontario. If we can get enough baby killed, if we can create enough confusion, then we're going to throw things into a mess. The point I want to make mostly here is Daniel didn't know much, but he knew not to stop. 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 Didn't see anything. He was hungry, didn't wash, but he saw something that he knew he had to fight, and he did not stop. But the prince of the Persia kingdom resisted me 21 days, then Michael. So this is reinforcements take place. Michael in the heavenlies, whether some of his angels with him came, I don't know, came to help me because I was detained there. So he was detained, which shows you that some of the enemy's sources and powers can detain. So it's not like, oh, God's people can do anything. No. That's why there's a battle in the spirit realm. It can go either way. And battles can be won and lost because they're being affected by the people on the planet. Now, I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. So he's fighting over a vision that's not about now. It's about in the future, probably the days we're living in now. Jumping to verse 17, 3 or 4 more verses, then we're done. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone and I can hardly breathe, Daniel says. Again, the one, see, he was weak, but the angel didn't think he was weak. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid, O man, highly esteemed. Is that not 2 times he said that? Say amen or oh me. Peace, be strong now, be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of, in other words, he took a break from the battle to come over here and talk to him. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. In other words, there's going to be another spiritual force coming to fight. But I want you to know, Daniel, you're in a spiritual fight. But first, I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. And then, of course, then it goes on, So in other words, this is this beautiful moment when God pulls back the curtain and lets us have a peek of what goes on behind the scenes. Most of that time, you're never going to be able to tell someone when God shows you stuff. but he wants you to stand. It says, having done all to stand. If you go on YouTube, I haven't done this, so I don't know how good the movie is, because some movies are good and some are crummy on YouTube. I don't mean morally crummy. I mean, some are real movies on there, and some are somebody's taken a video clip of a movie and put it on there, and it's pretty awful. But Sergeant York, how many know Sergeant York? Anybody know Sergeant York, First World War? So Sergeant York was a pacifist, didn't want to go to war. Then he had to go to war. He felt he had to go to war. Because the Bible tells us that God sometimes says, don't take a sword, and God says, take a sword. And Sergeant York, if you see that movie, I forget, it was 147 soldiers or something. He, on his own, in the First World War, captured something like 147 soldiers. I don't know how many he killed, but he captured, I think it was 147 soldiers. And so here again, I wanted to tell you something. He was a marksman because he used to kill rabbits, but he was a Christian. And when he thought one thing, he was willing not to do it. And then suddenly the Lord showed him that he was to fight. Now, I personally don't believe in a war you can rescue or you can detain and capture 147, and if it was 127, forgive me, without God's help. That's why a movie was written by him, about him. That's why he's famous. Because see, he went into a natural battle knowing he was in a spiritual battle. He didn't want to kill people. That's why he wanted to capture them. But he did have to kill some because they were going to kill him. And you're in a war. And you're not murdering the person in war, by the way, because you're not killing that person. You're killing the uniform. The uniform represents the country. The country is trying to take over your country, take your freedoms. You have a uniform on. You're representing this country. It's two countries fighting each other for whatever the battle is. And we're in a battle. Just because we're living in Canada where we still got it really, really easy, we're in a battle. And it could make a huge difference on what happens for your kids' lives. It could make an enormous difference because you stand in the gap. And one day you'll say, man, I'm glad Pastor Brian reminded me that I've got a job to do. And I hope angels turn up and knock you over and wake you up and lift you up and tell you to smarten up. And that'd be kind of fun in the deal. But the fact that you have the authority to bind things